Hi, this is a short preview of the course I'll be launching on Udemy soon. My name is George Albert Sofa. I'm a software engineer with a bachelor's degree in software development. I have almost 5 years experience building applications using the Java technologies. In this course, we will be talking about microservices, a project-based approach. What this means is that we will not only talk about the technologies, but we will also take a domain and apply the technologies that Spring technologies meaning Spring Boot, AngularJS, and Bootstrap, and actually apply these technologies onto that domain. And this domain in particular is the point of sale domain. The basic use cases of our applications will be a user must be able to authenticate themselves into the system. A user must be able to register a business. By registration, we don't mean actually going to government. We just mean capturing details of a business and saving it into our system. And then the next one is a user must be able to add products to registered businesses. And lastly, a user must be able to sell registered products. The architecture which we'll be implementing will look like this. So what we have here is a microservices architecture. And in this architecture, we've got, first of all, 3 services: a business service, product service, and sales service. And they all have their separate databases in isolation. So what I mean is the servers won't actually live with the database server on the same container. We will talk about container in more details in the course. But for now, containers are essentially instances of images. And an image, if you have a Java background, take an image as a class and a container as an instance of an object. We will dive into that some more when we start with the actual course. And then after having all these services, we need a way for these services to talk to each other. That's where service discovery is important and it comes into play. And our service discovery implementation we will be using is Eureka. So we will discover that in the course, the sales service will need to talk to the product service in order to update the quantity on hand. And that's where we will use the service name which the product service used to register on Eureka to actually contact the product service. And we move on to the next layer of the application, which is the API gateway. The idea of an API gateway is to unify all entry or all access to our services via a single endpoint. And lastly, we've got our client applications which will be Angular and which will be built using Angular and Bootstrap. Each service will have the following responsibilities. The product service will have to be able to save a product, update product details, update quantity on hand. The sales service must be able to save a new sale. The business service must be able to save business details, update business details. And as we just mentioned, the Eureka server is just there to help us discover, to help services discover each other in a clustered environment. And then the API gateway is to allow a single access point to all services through routing. We will talk about routing some more when we start with the course. And then comes Spring, which makes everything available via its Spring IOC, which is a Spring container, and that is the base of all Spring applications. We will talk a lot about Spring IOC and Spring projects in general that we'll be using, and then Spring Boot, which makes our lives easy when working with Spring applications. Okay, so I'll quickly demonstrate the basic usage of our application, but via Postman, which helps us test our endpoints in isolation. Okay, so to start with, we are going to save a business because that's where it starts. I'll omit the user registration for now, but where it starts, we need to save a business. And to save a business, we need the business name, the address, the telephone, the website, and the user that is creating the business. And then we've saved the business. Okay. Now we want to make sure that this business actually exists. We will talk to our endpoint to get us a business. So we say find a business, and that's the business ID. We need to find. We find the business. Okay, so we're not finding the correct business. We will quickly check in our database to see what business ID our business actually has. Okay, so it would be the last one. So this is the business we want to find. Okay, so we're having some issues finding the business. Okay, let's just make sure we're hitting the correct endpoint. We are hitting the correct endpoint. So we want to go in to find all businesses for this user. Okay, so we have a bit of a problem. The problem is we're trying to find businesses of a user that doesn't exist. So we've saved our business here with the user ID 1. So if we want to find businesses for this user, we have to use this ID. And then it's a bad request because of the object mapping. Now, I'm going to use an existing business which I had, which has got a proper user ID, and we will be able to retrieve the user. Okay, let's just create the new business with a proper business ID. Okay, so the business ID needs to be the correct hexadecimal value for our system to recognize it currently. So I'm going to have and then going to save it. And now I'm going to take that user ID and then we're going to find it. Okay. So user ID, let's just see that we managed to save our business in the first place before we try to find it. So that's our user ID, which appears to be a string instead of an object ID. Okay, let's quickly have a look in the code to see what the problem is. Go into the business service, check his controller, and say we're finding businesses for this ID, okay, and that's the user ID, okay, and then we find all by ID, which is an object ID, so that needs to be an object ID, that's correct, and then we go in there, and then we need to pass an object ID to return the businesses for that user. So, what is the problem? We've got the user ID, okay. So the problem could be that we're saving the business in the wrong format in the first place. So let's quickly have a look at what structure our business domain is. The structure of our business domain has a business ID, but the user ID is a string, so we're going to make it an object ID. Okay. We will make it an object ID so that it's compatible with our find business endpoint of functionality. Okay. So we've updated the code, now we need to build. Now the build is done, we need to restart our cluster. Okay. Cluster is down, stop everything. First command is to build everything. Okay, so once everything is built, we're going to run the up command to start our cluster with the freshly built images.